Hello, YouTube divers. This is WaterEye 122, and I finally want to welcome you all to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. Yes, this series that I basically talk about rock and or metal, whether it's album rankings or album reviews or song reviews or things like that. This is basically like one of the musical portions of my channel. And today I want to do like an in-depth review of the new self-titled album by Helloween. First off, a little bit of history about this album before we actually get into the tracks on it. So I've already mentioned this album before on my Bands of the Alphabet video where I was talking about Helloween. I mentioned their new album, and in that video I basically said that their new album is absolutely amazing. And, well, I do think it's an absolutely amazing record. Now, do I think it's as good as, like, let's say, their Keeper of the Seven Keys albums, parts 1 and 2, or Master of the Rings? Probably not. I mean, definitely not. And when you compare it to the Keeper's albums. But this is definitely a breath of fresh air, because this, in my opinion, is the best album Helloween put out since Keeper of the Seven Keys: The Legacy. And if you remember on my Helloween album ranking, I'm not really a big fan of the albums between Gambling with the Devil and My God-Given Right. I'm just not a big fan of those 4 albums. But, this new self-titled album we got, definitely a treat. Now, a little bit of a backstory about this album. This basically consists of the Pumpkins United lineup of Helloween. Basically, Andy Darris, Michael Kiske, Kai Hansen, Michael Weikath, Sasha Greshner, Marcus Grosskopf, and Danny Lobel. That is a 7-piece band. And 3 of those 7 members are singers, which are Kiske, Darris, and Hansen. Also, Hansen is one of the 3 guitar players. When it comes to this album, I think this is the most Helloween that Helloween had ever been. And I've heard a lot of their albums. It definitely brings back memories of their early days, like with Walls of Jericho, the 2 Keepers albums, and Master of the Rings. Maybe a little bit of Pink Bubbles Go Away, but some songs on this new album kind of remind me of songs from Pink Bubbles Go Ape, and maybe even a little bit of Chameleon. Some from Time of the Oath, some from Dark Ride, and even some moments from Better Than Raw. I mean, I could go on and on about how much these songs remind me of Helloween songs from previous albums. But needless to say, this album is an absolute masterpiece, and I was looking forward to it as soon as I heard that Helloween was coming out with a new album. And, I've been looking forward to it. I finally sat there and decided to give it a full listen, and here we are. I'd say it was well worth the wait. So, now let's get into the album. Let's get into the analysis of the album. So, the songwriters on this album, the main songwriters on here were Andy Darris, Sasha Greshner, and Michael Weikath. Basically the same writing trio that wrote Helloween songs since Rabbit Don't Come Easy, another album that I'm not really a big fan of. And there was also one song on here written by Marcus Grosskopf, the bass player, who we all know is a very occasional writer. Like, he writes songs for Helloween every now and then. And some of his stuff is very strong. I mean, just go listen to I'm Doing Fine, Crazy Man. I love that song. And of course, we got one track on here written by Kai Hansen, who, in my opinion, is the greatest songwriter in Helloween history. I really, really love his songwriting skills. It's amazing on Walls of Jericho, even though Walls of Jericho is kind of give or take for me, and especially on the 2 Keeper of the Seven Keys albums. And I think this album basically answers one of the biggest questions in the history of power metal. What if Kai Hansen never left Helloween? I would probably say that this album kind of gives us the answer, because this is basically a lot more powerful, more heavier album than, let's say, a couple of their other albums. I'm looking at You, Pink Bubbles Go Away, Pink Chameleon, even though I love those two albums. If Kai Hansen never left the band, and if he never formed Gamma Ray, then maybe Helloween would have stuck to their power metal roots. They would have been a lot more darker, more heavier, more powerful, for that matter. And I don't think all these cheesy power metal bands would have taken a big influence. They might have, but I don't know. But regardless, I absolutely love Kai Hansen's work, and he's just a great songwriter. What more is there to say? All right, now let's get into the tracks here. So the opening track is Out for the Glory, a song written by Michael Wycath. This is mainly a song that has Michael Kiske on vocals, and I think it's a great introduction for Kiske back in Helloween, because at this point, excluding the Pumpkins United tour, this was the first album he was featured with Helloween since Chameleon, which came out in 1993. And of course, Kiske had solo stuff. He toured with other bands like Avantasia and Unisonic and probably Gamma Ray. But this is really the first Helloween album he's featured on, and I think Out for the Glory really sets the mood for this whole album, and it's a great welcome back message from Michael Kiske. He sounds great on this song. He sounds great on this album. And that leads us to the second song on here, which is Fear the Fallen. Now, before listening to this album, before it came out, this was one of the tracks that I was absolutely looking forward to. And when I heard that this song was going to be a single, I was very excited. I was going to check it out as soon as the music video came out. And it's more of a lyric video, but that is okay. The song is just amazing. And in my honest opinion, and of course a lot of Helloween fans would maybe agree with me, this is really a great duet between Kiske and Darris. Now, Michael Kiske and Andy Darris, they're two completely different singers, but on this track, they sound absolutely phenomenal together. I mean, just take a look at all the choruses. They use a technique that I've not seen in any other bands. I mean, they alter their parts. Take, for example, in the first chorus, Kiske starts it, and then Darris finishes it, and then Darris starts it, and then Kiske finishes it, and then the second chorus, they reverse that pattern. If that makes sense. It gets complicated, I know. But that's the magic of altering. I love it. I friggin' love it. And what can I say? Fear of the Fallen is an amazing track. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. And it's honestly a phenomenal duet between Michael Kiske and Andy Darris. Now, when it comes to the Sasha Greshner material, you have Best Time, which mainly features Michael Kiske on vocals, with a little bit of parts sprinkled here and there from Kai Hansen, and some from Andy Darris. But it's mainly Michael Kiske on vocals here, and like with Out for the Glory, he sounds great, especially in the chorus. Yeah, it's anthemic. Yeah, it's happy. Yeah, it's childish. It's cheesy. It just kind of falls into that power metal trope. But I'm one of those rare people that absolutely loves it. In fact, big moments like that is why I love Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes and Hemispheres by Rush so much. By the way, those are my two favorite albums of all time, so there you go. Not in between. When it comes to the following song, Mass Pollution, a lot of Helloween fans love this song, and I absolutely agree with them. This is a phenomenal track. Um, and this is one of two songs that has Andy Darris on vocals, and he just sounds so great. Like, his voice has aged so well since his debut with Helloween on Master of the Rings. I mean, even though I am personally a huge Michael Kiske fan, I really, really love Andy Darris, and he is definitely a close second. In fact, he's almost in my top 10 all-time favorite vocalists. So, there you go. Now we've got some more songs here. We got another track here from Sasha Grushner named called Angels. Angels is a really, really good track. It's dark, it's serious. That atmosphere is just I love that atmosphere, especially in the chorus when they're like including like minor chords and it sounds all dark and gloomy and doomy. I love it. I freaking love it. And I love Michael Kiske's voice in the chorus. It's just so heavy hitting. And usually it's Andy Darris who is singing like dark and heavy stuff like this. But when Kiske's singing it, woo! It is freaking good and I love it. Now, when it comes to the next song written by Andy Darris, that is the song Rise Without Chains. It's a good song, don't get me wrong. And it repeats that altering of the choruses, like we saw in Fear of the Fallen. But, yeah, I think it's probably the weakest track on the album, but it's still a great track. I mean, I really enjoy Rise Without Chains, and I really love the chorus. Yeah, it can be cheesy from time to time, but you know, I'm one of those guys that is just a sucker for it. So, there you go. Now we get into another one of my favorite songs on the record, which is the only song written by Marcus Grosskopf, the bass player. And that is the song Indestructible. And when Michael Kiske sings the chorus to Indestructible, I just want to freaking dance my head off. And this is really one of those songs where Andy Darris and Michael Kiske basically alter in parts. Not like on the same section of the song, like in different sections. Like Andy will sing the verses and Kiske will sing the chorus. And I think that's a really good formula for Helloween to follow. I mean, Andy Darris kills it on the verses, and Michael Kiske, do I even need to talk about the chorus? I love the chorus to Indestructible. For Michael Kiske's voice alone, Michael Kiske's voice has, in my opinion, aged so freaking well. I mean, he does not have the same tone he had back during the Keeper era and the Pink Bubbles Go Ape and the Chameleon era. But he's still, I mean, for someone who was like 54, 55 years old, he sounds great. And now, following Indestructible is probably my second favorite song on the album, and it is another song written by Michael Weikath, and that is Robot King. I love Robot King. Robot King is an amazing, amazing song. I love that song. I've probably said that twice. What am I talking about? But, now, this is really a tale of two songs here, where the verses are so dark and gloomy and heavy, and the chorus is just heavy hitting with Kiske and Darris singing and harmonizing, and the chorus, like basically the second chorus, like conquer the world, rule forever and ever, that chorus, it hits me so flippin' hard. It hits me like a freaking freight train. It is so powerful. And the bridge, the guitar solos, everything on this song is, in my opinion, amazing. The outros are great. What more can I say about Robot King with the except it is a masterpiece. I love that track. And quickly moving on to the next song. This song is another one written by Andy Darris, I think. Is the song called Cyanide, and Cyanide is a really really great track. I love Cyanide. Lots of heavy moments on here. This mostly has Andy Darris on vocals, although Kiski does tend to like sing a couple parts here and there. But the next song I'm going to be talking about, Down to the Dumps, written by Michael Wycath, and the final one written by Michael Wycath, has Andy Darris only on vocals. Like, there's no Michael Kiske, it's just Andy Darris. And this is a really strong track. I mean, it's heavy. It is so powerful. And especially that chorus, it, like with Robot King, it hits you like a freaking freight train. And I can only imagine how crazy that crowd would be going if Helloween would play this album live, which they will be next summer when they play at Hellfest in France. Sadly, I don't think I'll be able to make it over there, but Helloween is definitely one of those bands that I do want to see live before they call it quits. I really want to see Helloween live. That would be an amazing show. And then, quickly moving on, we got the final two songs on the record. Orbit, which is like a little space instrumental. And then we get to what I consider to be the best track on the album. And that is Skyfall. Skyfall, Skyfall, Skyfall. Talk about great epics. I mean, this was the only track written by Kai Hansen. And like with Out for the Glory, like how I said that Out for the Glory was basically Michael Kiski's introduction back into the Helloween world. This song, Skyfall, was basically how I considered to be Kai Hansen's welcome back statement to the Helloween world. Because his songwriting is on full display here. He even sings on parts of this song. I've listened to both the single version and the album version. I've listened to both versions. And yeah, I do prefer the single version. But the album version is freaking amazing. And when I heard that this song was coming out very soon, I was ready. I was so excited for it. Because at this point, I had just become a fan of Helloween. And when I heard that they were still going to make a new album, they were going to make another album, I was jumping for joy. I was like, oh my god, I'm finally going to see one of the greatest bands ever release a new album. And when I saw the music video for this song, I remember I was riding with my dad to my high school in preparation for a football game, because it came out on April 2nd. The single, and Skyfall came out on April 2nd, which was a Friday, and of course it was Friday night football time. I was listening to the music video, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my god, our boys are back! And then when I listened to the full 12-minute album version, it didn't disappoint me in the freaking slightest. Now, yeah, I did have to get used to some parts that were cut out from the single version, but overall, it was a freaking killer track, and it's my favorite song on the album, without a doubt. Without a flippin' doubt. I absolutely love Skyfall, and it is, without a doubt, a masterpiece. So, with that said, let's get to the final rating. My final rating of this album is a 9.5 out of 10. And the only reason why I'm not giving it a 10... Actually, no, screw that. A 10 out of 10. I'm going to give this album a 10 out of 10. And it ranks number 5 on my Helloween album rankings, including the new album. The new album's a masterpiece. Go listen to it right now if you haven't already, you Helloween fans out there. Alright, so with that said, thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.